Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back or welcome to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am so excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 221. If you missed my last episode, number 220, we talked about the top 5 reasons you're not going after what you want. I feel like it's been a minute since I've recorded because I typically do my episodes together at the beginning of the week. I feel like as much as time goes by very quickly, whenever it's recording day, it always seems like there's been such a big gap between the last time that I had recorded. So I am feeling very excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all. If you're watching video, you can see that my palm tree behind me is not doing so good. He decided to start leaning in one direction, so I thought, well, if I counter that and turn it in an opposite direction, knowing that it always reaches back towards the sun, and I could totally be talking out of my ass when I say that, but that's just kind of what I've noticed from a lot of plants, they kind of like to gravitate towards the sun. But he's just not doing so good, and luckily I think I'm going to a plant nursery today, so I'm going to see if they have any cute plants there because I want to fill this room with plants. I want more. I always want to add more. I've added a little elevation stand over here to lift up my aloe vera a little bit, but nonetheless, all of this to say that a lot has happened in this last week. And I'm finally doing an episode today, as you've seen in the title, about grounding and talking about grounding techniques. I've done episodes before on this topic, but I think it's something that I should never just assume that folks are comfortable with or that this is common knowledge. And if you are new to tuning in, this is a really great time for you to be here, and I'm so happy that you're here. We talk about all things mental health and self-love and growth, self-prioritization, evolvement on this podcast. But the thing that happens when we start these journeys, or when we want to start to grow, want to start to improve, is our mental health kind of creeps in and is like, well, that's cute, but what about all this unprocessed stuff you haven't dealt with? What about all this trauma that's still in your body? And we often get flooded with all these emotions and sometimes flashbacks and things in our life that can sometimes hinder our progress and make us feel like we're not moving forward. And one of the best ways that we can start to work towards improving that is by grounding ourselves. So when I used to work as a counselor when I was living in Alberta, a huge part of my role was to work in phase 1 of trauma healing. It's called safety and stabilization. Because when we look at healing trauma and how much trauma stays and is stored in the body, it's next to impossible to just go through a big T horrendous trauma, or really any event, but specifically big T traumas, and then be able to just tell your story in a safe way in your body. Because as we know, trauma is stored in our body, in our nervous system. What can happen is a disconnect between our mind and our body. And when that happens, and they're not communicating with each other, we often are living our life on autopilot, in a state of fight or flight, oftentimes without realizing it. There's times when I look back in my life where I'm like, that was a full phase of fight or flight, and I didn't realize it because I was so disconnected from myself. Not to mention the fact that at the time I was, using marijuana and drinking alcohol and doing all these things. And I don't want to paint a picture that's worse than it was, because it wasn't that bad, but it definitely didn't help my situation. And I was continuing to disconnect. And when we are naive to the fact that things have affected us, we often won't invest the time and energy into working on them. And so obviously every single person tuning into this episode, you have a different story. You have different things that have affected your life, different events you have gone through, different traumas, big T, little t, I don't care. We all have things that shape who we are. And the interesting thing is one person could have a big T trauma, quote unquote, and another person could have a small t trauma, but they're both affected completely differently. This has to do with our neuroplasticity, our resilience that was developed as a child, our ability to cope with things that happen in life, our support system. There's so many factors that influence how we will, and I hate saying this, but bounce back from trauma. And I don't say that in a way to sound like trauma is something that you just, oh, I'm over it. But we do all have a different way of responding when we go through adversity, when we go through challenging things in life. So I wanted to talk about this topic because it is something that will never not be useful in our lives. It is something that can benefit everybody. The same as we drink water and eat food, baby, we need to ground ourselves. We need to come back to our bodies. So many of us don't live in our bodies. We think that we do, but we don't. And again, I cannot preface enough, this is not a substitute for seeking professional help. This is just a crutch, if you will, an aid, and something to help get you there, encouragement, love, to help you feel safe in talking about these things. But you know if it's best for you to kind of seek these opportunities out with a professional, because getting this help one-on-one is really where you're going to start to see the benefits and where it's going to feel safe. So I don't want you to, if it feels unsafe for you to come back to your body and you know that intuitively, don't try to. Seek that support with somebody that can help you go there and start to work on that a little bit at a time. Just jumping right in 2 feet first in trauma work is 10 out of 10 not recommended. Not recommended. But if you do feel kind of safe and you want to explore some of these things or just have some tools in your toolbox, this is definitely the episode for you. So how I want you to think about grounding is, have you ever had a time in your life where you've felt triggered? You've been anxious, you've felt out of body, dissociated, almost like you're watching yourself from a movie, or you just feel so overwhelmed. And in those moments, what typically happens is we catastrophize, meaning we over-amplify the situation to be the worst case scenario. We do something to try to suppress the feeling because nobody enjoys feeling overwhelmed. We try to cover it with alcohol or drugs. We try to do something to distract ourselves. But when is our response typically to try to come back and regulate our body? Almost never. And the reason for that, I truly believe, isn't because we don't want to and we don't want to do what's best for us, but because we don't know these things. I did not know these things before I studied trauma healing and trauma work. And once I started to learn these things, I'm like, why is this not taught in the classroom? When we have a child that's freaking out and is overwhelmed, we send them into the hallway to sit by themselves. Or that was my experience in school anyways, that I witnessed. It's like, why aren't we teaching these little humans that when their nervous system is overwhelmed, they need something? That's communicating something. And I know that trauma work is becoming more of a common conversation, but there's just still so much work to be done because for so many generations, we weren't taught these things. And it takes a lot of work to also rewire our relationship with our nervous system and in coming back to our body. But so we've all felt that at one point in time in our lives or another, whether we want to openly admit that or not. Just hold that for yourself in your consciousness and in your heart space. Think of a time where you have felt that way and you're just like, I hate this. So a little story for you guys. I, in the last 30 hours, we'll call it, have experienced this intensely twice. I could not tell you the last time I have felt this so intensely, but the fact that I have 2 strikes in the last 30 hours is freaking great. Not. So the first time was yesterday. And yesterday I woke up and I was like, I want to clean the house. I had a huge to-do list. I want to go through a closet that I have that has just been piling stuff up and just clean everything out. And I was on autopilot without realizing it for probably 6 hours. And I had my headphones in, that was probably super loud, I'm sorry, that are right here, that if you are listening to audio, basically they are like earmuff headphones. They cover my ears completely. And so without realizing it, I had been completely disconnecting myself from my physical space. And I got on a FaceTime call with my partner and I realized how anxious I was. And I'm like, whoa, like, what's going on here? And at first you start to think that it's the situation that's causing it because that's kind of the only thing that shifted. But after I kind of processed later, I was like, I was disconnected all day. And then that call was the first time that I had actually spoken out loud all day. And so I share the story because nothing had inherently happened, but I had sent myself into a state of fight or flight and autopilot all day by being disconnected, by not coming back to my body, by not being in tune, and I had overwhelmed my nervous system. I was in an active stress response all day without realizing it. And so in that moment, I was 10 out of 10 anxious. I had not felt like that, honestly, you guys, in years. I have not felt that intense of anxiety in so long. It was to the point where I just wanted to crawl in bed and ignore the world for the rest of the day, which I knew was the opposite of what I needed to do. And obviously I'm going to get into some techniques in a little bit, but what helped me in that moment was grabbing some essential oil, which I will share in a little bit. And I had to just breathe and tell myself that it was going to be okay, and to just allow myself to not be okay. So many of us, when we feel those emotions and feelings, we try to suppress them, and we're like, well, why am I angry? And why am I upset? And why am I anxious? And why am I depressed? And we blame and blame and blame. But really all that had happened is I had just become so disconnected and not grounded all day that, I set myself off like a cannon into a state of fight or flight. Second incident happened this morning, which was largely what encouraged me to, I know I've been talking about this episode for a couple weeks, but it was truly when I was like, all right, enough's enough. I got to talk about grounding, because this morning I kind of sent myself into a full-blown fight or flight response, which again has not happened in a long time. So it was 5 o'clock this morning, and my dog sleeps in the room with me, and she just started growling. And I love that she growls because she keeps me safe, but not gonna lie, every time she does, I'm kind of like, please stop because you're scaring me. And she kept growling and like kind of barking and looking out the window and pacing back and forth. And I was like, okay, what is going on? And in my mind at the time, I was kind of half asleep, half awake. And I'm like, okay, it's Monday morning. So that means the garbage truck is probably going by. She's probably barking and growling at the garbage man. I'm like, I'm gonna go back to sleep. Not a big deal. She keeps growling. Time is going on by. It's been like 3 minutes at this point, and I'm like kind of now awake. And I have my blinds closed, but I can see that there's bright lights outside of the window. So I'm like, I'm just gonna check it out because I'm also low-key kind of freaked out. And I opened the window a little bit, the curtain like kind of peeked out, and there's a car parked in the driveway. And I was like, why is there somebody here? And this is kind of weird. And then my head went to, well, this is probably the Amazon guy, because we have one Amazon guy that likes to come at the crack of dawn, sometimes at like 2, 3 in the morning. It's the worst, because if you have a dog, it's just gonna send them off. So I was like, it's Amazon. It's an Amazon guy. Don't worry about it. But I just like kept watching, and he was sitting there not getting out of the car. And the light was on in the car, and the lights were like shining bright. And I was like, what the actual heck is going on right now? And I'm freaking out. And I see that this guy's like doing something with his hands, like grabbing something and doing something. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what's he doing? What's about to happen? My head goes to the worst case scenario. My nephew sleeps below me, so I'm just like full auntie mama bear protection mode comes on. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I call my brother, and my brother doesn't answer. He lives downstairs. He doesn't answer. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I called my mother. My mother lives 10 minutes in the woods. Like, I don't know why, but I was in a state of fight or flight. I was just doing anything because I was freaking out. I'm like texting my boyfriend like, oh my God, somebody's in the driveway. He's 20 minutes down the road. He's sleeping. His phone's off. He's not going to answer. But I'm just freaking out. My hands are like shaking out of control. My brother then texts me. He goes, you good? And I was like, do you know who's in the driveway? He's like, yeah, it's my ride. We're going fishing. Ask me how stupid I felt in that moment. I was like, okay, have fun. Love you. But my brain in that moment didn't know the difference between a threat and being able to rationalize and I tried to go through some of the possibilities, but when those two possibilities that I'd thought of, the Amazon guy and the garbage truck, weren't true, I'm like, okay, well now something's not checking out. And my brain had to go into a state of, well, what if? And I panicked. And what happens is when we think there's a threat, even if it's not, we think that there is, our thinking logic brain goes out the window. It's offline. Our front brain is offline, and we are fully acting out of impulse. And I had shot myself into such a state of fight or flight. After he said that it was his buddy and they were going fishing and they left him, whatever, and I told my mom, because my mom texted me and she's like, "Are you good? Like, what's going on?" And I told her, and then it was like an LOL moment, and all was good, but I could still feel my heart racing. I was still freaking out, because when we get into those states, it takes our body time to shake off all that cortisol that it produced. Cortisol, when we have too much of it in the run of a day, can be very detrimental to us. But cortisol, when we think there's a threat or we're being chased by a bear, is a great thing. That's when adrenaline kicks in. And so I had now all this stress response. It felt like it was just sitting on my chest, and I laid in bed, not only just feeling stupid, but also like, what now? It's 5 a.m. I don't have to be up for another 2.5 hours. I need to go back to sleep, but I just was so overwhelmed. So I'm like, you know what? This is the time to use my grounding techniques, which I'm now going to share with you all. So coming back to smell, I have a bucket of essential oils beside my bed. I have a crap ton in my living room. Literally any room you go in my house, there's essential oils. A, because I love the smell. B, because toxin-free living is the bomb and the way to go. They smell good, but mostly for me, it's for my mental health and how much they calm me down. So this one's actually called Present Time. And my eyes actually been twitching all morning as well, which is a sign of high cortisol. And so I know that that's definitely a byproduct of everything that happened in the last couple of days. But when we can smell something, it is the quickest way that we can ground ourselves. Our senses are the quickest way that we can ground our body. So what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, what we touch. Our smell is the first sense that comes back online, turns our limbic part of our brain, our limbic system back online, which is responsible for processing and regulating our emotions. So when we get that system back online, we can shift back into that parasympathetic state, begin to process what it is that's going on. So something that I like to do, and you can grab any scent that you have. If you don't use essential oils, smell an orange. Smell, I don't know, I strongly despise candles because they're basically killing us. But if you are a candle person, no shame, smell a candle. Something that just has a scent to it that is going to get your brain back online. A technique that I like to do, if you're listening to audio, basically I'm holding my hand out. I put a drop of oil on the palm of my hand. I rub my hands together while I'm trying to breathe. And sometimes it's really hard to breathe. And I cup my hands and I do something called a scent tent. So if you're watching video, you can see me. If you're listening to audio, basically I cup my hands around my nose and I take a deep breath. Even just doing that one breath, I notice myself calming down. Breath work is something that can sound so silly. But the same is when we shallow breathe when we are in fight or flight. If we don't notice that we're shallow breathing in the run of a day, we could actually be activating our sympathetic nervous system without realizing it, just through the rhythm of our breathing. So the whole point of grounding is intentionality. It is an intentional thought, movement, action, something that is different from your autopilot state. That is when we start to ground ourselves. When we get into these overwhelmed fight or flight states, it's typically because our body's taking over and it's just doing whatever it thinks it needs to do. And I do just want to preface that grounding ourselves is something we need to be doing proactively. Not just when we're in those moments of thinking that somebody's in our driveway that's going to come murder us, right? It's every single day finding capacity to ground yourself. You are building that tool within your body that it's safe to be in there. And so smell is one of the best, easiest ways, and I say the word easy lightly because I know sometimes it's challenging, but one of the most effective, easy ways we can come back to our body. With all these, I can't preface enough, they shouldn't be too complicated. Yes, they can feel like a lot, but the actual process shouldn't be too complicated. And most of these don't cost any money. Yes, if you don't have any oils or things that you can smell, I would definitely encourage you to invest in them because they are a game changer. But none of these inherently cost money. They just take you being proactive. So if you know you're someone that gets overwhelmed when you do certain things, when you go to a certain place, how can you have a little toolkit ready with you that you can utilize to bring with you that can support you through that? So that is kind of the first technique, is taking some deep breaths and smelling something. Even if you can't get yourself to take a deep breath, there's been times where I've had clients in a completely dissociated state, completely overwhelmed. And after some time has passed and I'm trying to kind of bring them back to the present moment, I will literally just like waft an oil, not even close to them, just like kind of in the proximity of them, and you can see them start to come back online because their body's like, whoa, what's that smell? Okay, and so definitely try to get something that smells good, and try to avoid candles if you can, because like I said, side note, they're very, very toxic. Okay, second technique, a lot of folks have probably heard of this one, but it's super helpful and it's very, very effective. And it's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Basically, you're gonna say 5 things that you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. So right now in this moment, I can see my ring light, I can see my calendar, I can see plants, I can see my monitor, and I can see a picture of my dog. I can touch my coffee in front of me, I can touch my mouse, I can touch and feel the fabric of my shirt, and I can touch my chair. I can hear a car driving by, and I can hear birds chirping outside. I can smell essential oils, and I can smell my coffee, and I can taste my coffee. That's how quick it is. Really, the point of it is to interrupt those thoughts that are going a million miles a second, and it's to bring you back to your physical space. Because oftentimes when we're triggered, our brain and body are kind of somewhere else. We're thinking about something else. We're kind of pulling away. When we can come back to our physical space, it allows us to be in this moment. One thing that my therapist used to do with me as well is be like, describe the texture of your shirt. What does it feel like? Is it soft? Is it more rough? Is it warm? Is it cold? Feel the chair. What does it feel like right now? Like, you know, it's smooth. It's kind of cold. A heating pad is here and it's warm and it's super soft and it's stretchy, and just getting very descriptive. And I know these things sound kind of kindergarten-y. Is that a word? They sound very simplistic. But in those moments of overwhelm, even just getting ourselves to say what we can see, I've had such intense episodes of dissociation for myself where my vision becomes needlepoint. I feel like I can't see anything. And so I usually start with like, I can typically hear things. And so I'll typically start with like feeling something. Oh, that feels soft. And then I feel myself coming more online and more online. And so depending on your experiences, obviously this is going to impact all of us differently. And I do just want to normalize for some of us that have never experienced really intense forms of dissociation or disconnection, I just want to normalize that it does happen. Because sometimes when we hear these things and we've never experienced them, we're like, are you crazy? Like, are you serious? That happens? Like, are you good? And there's a lot of shame that can come with it. And so I want to normalize that just because we've never experienced these things ourselves, that's a reality for a lot of people on an every single day basis. There's been sessions with clients where we talk for 30 seconds and then the next 20 minutes are grounding, because sometimes it just takes over. And that's why we have to be gentle with ourselves. Every time I talk about this work, it's like, we gotta be gentle, because when we bring up these things, it does feel like they're happening over again. It feels so real in that moment, and that's scary as heck, because not only have you gone through it once, but your body, yes, it's in a way of protecting you, but it makes it seem like it's happening again to prevent it from happening, and it's a scary place to be. And so I just want to say, if you've never experienced these things, they do happen, and you likely know someone in your life that struggles with these things often. And so the more that we can educate ourselves and be aware of these things, the more that we can also be a potential support if we notice that somebody is triggered or overwhelmed. Okay, number 3, analyze sensations head to toe and then try to repeat something to yourself. So I like to repeat to myself, I am safe, sometimes for people, just that sentence alone is very overwhelming. But what I mean by this is starting at the tip of your toes. Even right now in this moment, let's do it together. Bring awareness to the tips of your toes. Notice what they feel like. Right now my feet are freezing because I kept the window open in here all night and it's so cold in here. Feel the sensation at the tip of your toes. And then go into your feet. What do they feel like? Right now I feel a carpet under my feet and it's really soft. And then move up to your ankles. Maybe you kind of wiggle your ankles a little bit. What does that feel like? Are they warm? Are they cold? Are they tired? And then go up your legs. Go into your shins. What does that feel like? And then up to your knees. My knee is killing me today, so I definitely noticed that. Up to your thighs. Up to your hips. And again, this can take anywhere from 30 seconds to 30 minutes. You go at your own speed. And again, if this is something that doesn't feel safe to do, seek professional help. And then you just keep going up your body, up your hips, up your belly, up your chest, into your shoulders. Oh, are you holding tightness in your shoulders? If you are someone who's like this all the time, basically your shoulders are up to your ears, how can you relax them? Put them down, shake it out a little bit, come up to your face. Is your tongue on the roof of your mouth? Are you clenching your jaw? Becoming aware of your body and what it's doing at all times is one of the biggest things that we practice in yoga is being aware of all points of your body in space, in real time, at all moments. And what I love about yoga is that there is trauma-informed yoga. And that there is a practice specifically designed to work with folks that have been impacted by trauma, and specifically sexual assault survivors and domestic violence survivors, and how being in tune with your body at all times can feel really scary, but how it can start to feel really safe. And so that is number 3. Number 4 is cold water on your hands or your body, but your hands specifically is typically just like an easier thing to do, and breathing. So one thing that I like to do sometimes is wash my hands with freezing cold water, or I'll hold an ice cube in both my hands and I'll notice my breathing, because sometimes when we touch cold water, it makes us gasp, but that's kind of a good thing because it's startling your system. And I like to count backwards from 100. So I'll put my hands under the water and I'll try to just count backwards. And sometimes I get to 80 and I'm like, yep, I'm good. Like that was helpful. I'm feeling good. Sometimes I have to go all the way down and then I have to start again. And if you think you're maybe going to be a while, maybe you put a little plug in the sink and you just fill it up and just put your hands in it back and forth and just feel what it feels like. But anything that's sensational that can kind of like snap your nervous system is going to be really, really helpful. That's why cold showers, I find for myself personally, when I'm super stressed, taking a cold shower really helps, because it kind of snaps me out of however I'm feeling, because it forces you to be present. Sometimes when you take a hot shower, it can actually kind of make things worse because you're comfortable and you're making those thoughts kind of more intense. There's no necessity to be uncomfortable, but when you can then kind of hit yourself with a flash of cold, it just makes you kind of startle and come back to the present moment. And last but not least, number 5. This is gonna be your friends like fidget toys. I always have some around me, so I've showed you guys this little guy before on camera. He's my little wiener dog, stretchy guy. I have this little shark one that honestly, this is probably one of my favorite ones to play with. There's stuff like this. It's just like a little wiggly, fidgety thing. And these are all very inexpensive from the dollar store, but they're just really useful tools to have. I like this one because on the outside it's soft, but this part is like a different texture, so it stimulates different parts of my brain because there's different textures going on. So when I'm sitting here, or I for myself, when I'm on a meeting, I have a very hard time staying present if I don't have something to fidget with. And so when I have this and I'm on a meeting, you can't even tell that I'm using this right now. And I've used fidget toys on my podcast before that you guys can't see because I do it kind of down here, and there's no way you would ever know. And so people don't know, and also it's normalizing these things. When we bring these things to meetings, have these conversations, it's normalizing like, hey, this isn't weird. It just helps me be a better version of myself. And I think that that's super cool. So kind of along with fidget toys, a couple other things I would recommend if you're overwhelmed is chewing gum, humming to yourself like anything that stimulates your vagus nerve, chewing gum, blowing bubbles, sucking on a hard candy, anything that has like that sucking or humming motion is going to stimulate your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in your body, and it is what will activate your parasympathetic nervous system. It is in control of your resting and digesting parts of your body. And so when we can stimulate that part of our body and get that back online, baby, we've grounded ourselves. So I know that we're kind of dipping into the 30-minute mark here. I like to keep my episodes around 20-25 minutes, but I had a lot to say for this one because I think it's a very important topic and concept, and I don't want to just jump through it because I think that it's really important that we have in-depth conversations about these things. And I hope that even one of these lands for you and you can put that in your metaphorical toolbox and carry that with you. Start with one of them. Maybe you grab yourself a little fidget friend, or maybe you make yourself a little roller with essential oils. Whatever it is for you, find what works, because these won't all work for you. One of them is likely going to stick out and be more beneficial for you, and that's okay. So much of healing and of grounding is trial and error and figuring out what works for you. I haven't had breakfast yet, if you can't tell, and it's like late in the day, so I should probably get some breakfast. I'm on my lunch break right now. But, oh my, every episode I lose my train of thought. But basically what I'm trying to say is figure out what works for you. And as always, I've said it 6 times today, seek mental health support. If you've never opened this conversation for yourself before, you've never dove into grounding, I would 100% highly recommend you work with someone, and someone who's trained in trauma healing and in feeling safe in your body. So thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I am so excited to chat with you all on Thursday. I hope your April is off to an amazing start, and I'm so excited to chat with you then. If you think that someone you know would enjoy this episode, I definitely encourage you to send it to them. Also, my Instagram is @JessieBrown13. I always love when you guys send me messages. Let me know that you've listened, what you're liking, what you'd maybe like to see. It means the world to me, honestly, genuinely, when you guys connect with me. So always feel free to send me a message. I would love to hear from you. And I hope you have the best day. All the love, you guys. Goodbye.